This is Jocko podcast number 336 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
So we've done a lot of reading and discussions and interviews on this podcast about the strategies and tactics from leadership, from human nature that I've seen others use or I've used myself. And, you know, this is something that I've noticed lately and this is something I used to see in the SEAL teams. And now I see it at Echelon Front as well, where I can sit there and discuss something with someone and think that they understand how to utilize that lesson immediately. So I explain something to someone and I think, oh, okay, cool. You know, they get it now, right? And they'll nod in their head and they'll kind of even give me the read back of, you know, what the principle means. And so I think they get it, and it seems pretty obvious from my vantage point, but it isn't always that obvious to everybody. And it can be very hard to see things when you're observing them for the first time. So a lot of times I like to try and show a tactic or a technique or a strategy or a procedure from a different angle, from a different perspective. And that's, you know, in order to try and convey that message to someone from a different vantage point where they maybe can understand it better. And I think I have become biased toward giving someone else's perspective, someone else's example. And I think that bias comes from the fact that I already know my perspective, right? So I already know what I think. So I enjoy, or I want to give someone else's perspective of a strategy because I find it interesting because it's someone else's, because I already know what's inside my own head, right? I already know what's in there. That being said, when I did the first interview I ever did in my life was with Tim Ferriss, and he asked me if there's anything that I was world class at. And of course I said, world class is a very strong phrase to use, right? And he said, it is a strong phrase. And so I told him I didn't think I was world class at anything, which I still believe I'm not world class at anything. But then I don't know if he reframed the question or if I just kind of reframed it in a way that I could appropriately answer it. And I said something along the lines of, if I had to say that I had some skill sets that helped me, I think that those skill sets would be, number one, being able to take complex things and make them simple. And then being able to communicate those things in a simple way that other people can understand. And then number two was the ability to detach myself mentally and emotionally from whatever situation I'm in. And I believe that allows me to see it more clearly. So those are the two things that I think helped me out throughout my career and that I might be decent at doing. So I wanted to talk through some principles that we reflect on a lot, but in a more pragmatic way, just to ensure, or at least to help everyone put some of these principles to use in our current environment. And I've also been thinking about talking about how some of the principles that I talk about apply to what is going on today. This is not, now what I don't want to do is do some kind of a current events thing. Oh, this is the latest news story. And this is, because to me, that's not going to last long, right? People need, if you use a current day example that takes you have to understand the backstory behind this news thing so you can apply it. I'm not really looking to do that, because I want somebody to be able to listen to this in 6 years and say, oh, there's a good angle I didn't see before, and this is going to help me with my leadership situation that I'm in right now. Or it's going to help me with my life the way I'm in right now. Or it's going to help me overcome this challenge that I'm facing right now. So to make it a little bit more evergreen is the term.
Yep.
Right? Am I using, industry terminology? Sure. Evergreen?
I learned evergreen from you. So
did you?
Yes, sir.
Evergreen means you can listen to this podcast in 10 years and it still makes sense. You're not referring to some random, TMZ news story that just came out and everybody's hype on it.
TNT. Hell yeah.
But I think we can remain or maintain the evergreen aspect of the podcast and still put in some of the current events that are going on right now, or at least some of the more outstanding current events. And some of this I've done on Unraveling with Daryl Cooper. I know we did Afghanistan. We've talked about Ukraine. So there's things that he and I hit on that podcast to kind of discuss from my perspective what's going on with these situations. And even those are difficult because they change so rapidly. Things change so rapidly. And I was just having a conversation about this with JP this morning about, he's heard me say a million times that the first report's always wrong. And he was, going through a situation. He's like, hey, is the first report always wrong? I said, yeah. Well, let me rephrase that. It might not be wrong, but it also might not be right. But you can't just trust. I might need to modify that a little bit where I say you can't trust the first report. Because if you call me panicked saying, I think the house is on fire, right? Or the house is on fire, the house is on fire. I can't trust that. I have to put it into my calculus. But look, there could have been a smoke bomb that the teenagers threw through the window and it looks like the house is on fire, but the house isn't on fire, right? Or the house could be on fire. So it could be right, it could be wrong. What I do know about the first report is I can't trust it 100%.
It's unreliable.
It's unreliable. So I might need to gather additional information.
Makes sense.
So speaking of these topics and speaking of something that comes up all the time and that I call a superpower is the ability to detach. And this, some people automatically get uncomfortable with that because when I say detach, they think, oh, you told me I shouldn't have any emotions at all, right? And it is talking about detaching from your emotions. It can also mean physically detaching from a situation, but detachment is a superpower, and we'll get to the emotional thing and how much you should detach and how much is too much. I think one of the clearest displays of detachment and how powerful it is. Well, one of them I wrote about in Leadership Strategy and Tactics, my first platoon doing the clearing the oil platform. But I had that other situation where I was with Seth, and he had taken over as task unit commander. And when he took over as task unit commander, he broke his neck. Thank God he wasn't paralyzed. So Seth Stone was one of the platoon commanders in task unit bruiser. Now he's took over as the task unit commander, and he's going through his pre-deployment workup. And I'm in charge of training for all these SEAL platoons and task units getting ready to deploy. And Seth doing a shipboarding where you climb up ladders onto ships from smaller boats. The guy, he was the last guy to be climbing the ladder because he's the task unit commander, so he's not going to be the first guy on deck, right? Because he's sort of taking a step back. He's supposed to be detached, so he's going to be the last guy that goes up. And as he's going up, the person above him, or let me rephrase that, right as he was about to start climbing the ladder, one of the other guys fell off the ladder and landed square on top of Seth's head from a fall of about 20 feet. And it broke his neck. His spinal cord was intact, thank God. So now he's in a big neck brace, but he can still walk around, and his task unit is now going through our land warfare training, and so he's out there observing because he can't participate. And as he's participating, or as he's observing, and I'm standing there with him observing, and it's one of these crazy training exercises. There's total mayhem going on. There's freaking explosions going off. We're using this high-speed laser tag system. There's dead people everywhere. Again, this is training, so they're not actually dead, but their laser tag system is saying that you're dead. So there's bodies strewn all over the place, and no one's moving, and no one's making any calls. It's a total disaster. And they're in a ravine, and the enemy, in quotes, is in an elevated position, and they're just tearing up this Seth's task unit. And Seth, he looks at me, he said, can I tell him what to do? And I said, no. I said, just let him figure it out. And another 30 seconds go by. More guys get shot with laser tags. He's like, let me help him. And I go, not yet. Another 30 seconds go by. More guys get shot. And mind you, his guys are in this ravine. We're actually in the ravine with them. Now, they're kind of prone position or maybe on their knees and we're standing up, but we're in the ravine with them. And finally, he says, more guys get shot. He goes, let me help him? And I go, all right, go ahead. And he grabs a random dude, not a leader, just a random guy. And he says, I remembered exactly what he said the other night. He said, do IADS, which is the most broad instruction to give someone, because no one's making any decisions. And an IAD is an immediate action drill, which means when you have a play in football, what's a play in football? Tell me like a play right now. That you guys used to run, that you were a part of.
38 sweep.
Okay, so 38 sweep. So now everybody knows what to do when you call that. Give me another one.
41 sweep.
Okay, 41 sweep. Now everyone's doing something a little bit different, but we're making adjustments. Yeah. So you literally have plays like that. Yeah. And you would say, if you were going to tell your football team, you'd say, call a play, right? What Seth was saying was, do IADS, which is the same thing as saying, call a play. So he just grabs a random dude. And he's like, hey. And probably some new guy or one cruise wonder, like all freaked out because everyone's getting shot. And Seth gets in his face like, do IADS. And the kid looks up at Seth and okay. And he makes a call. Whatever, 38 sweep or 41 sweep or peel left, peel right, shift left, shift right, whatever the call was. This kid actually makes a call. And almost immediately, the problem solved. Right? Almost immediately, they start executing this play, and people start putting down cover fire. Other people start to move, and it solves the problem. And as they get out of the area and get out of the kill zone, Seth looks at me and he says, it's so easy to see what to do from way up here. And let me remind you, way up here in that situation was simply that we were standing up. I mean, it wasn't like we were in some elevated position. We weren't in an aircraft flying around over. No, we could just see a little bit more. And by the way, the position we were in was a tactically sound position. So just by looking around and not getting tunnel vision and detaching whatever it is, probably 20 inches higher than the other people because they're on their knees and you're standing up. So you got like what, maybe 2 feet of additional altitude, and you could see everything. And I looked at him and I said something along the lines of, well, look, we're with them. We're not way up here. We're 24 inches above them. And he's like, oh yeah. And I said, but you're looking around, you're detached. He says, oh yeah. And then I said, you remember when we went through this training? And he says, yeah. And I said, this is what it was like for me all the time. And he had a look on his face of sort of recognition, kind of like, oh, dang. So all the confusion and chaos that was going on, I was always looking at it like, okay, peel left, shift right, swing 32. It was really easy to make the calls because you're looking at it and you can see it. And that is the power of being able to detach. And it is, you would think that, now this is why I'm talking about this stuff right now. Because you would think if I explain that to you, you go, oh, okay, cool, thanks, Jocko. Now I'm going to detach. Yeah. Right? Oh. That's what we would hope for.
Yeah.
There's a problem. It's not that easy. In fact, this can be very difficult to do. So here are some of the mechanics of being able to detach. And some of these are a little bit like training wheels, a little bit like learning aids once you get good at it, you won't need to do it anymore. But you should remember them anyways, because might be some situations where shit really starts going sideways and you have to go back, put your training wheels on and kind of get it back together. So one of the first training wheels is take a step back. A physical step back. A physical step back. This is going to change your perspective. It changes your perspective. And here's a little extra advice. And it's weird to say this. Lift your chin up and look around. And the reason I say lift your chin up is because when you lift your chin up, you're changing your perspective a little bit, right? Even if it's only by a half an inch. When you lift your chin up, you're kind of opening up yourself. You're opening up to new ideas. It's the opposite of a fight stance. What do you do when you're in a fight? If you're going to get in a fight?
Yeah.
You put your chin down, you put your hands up. So in this situation, and again, this is like a non-threatening situation. So if you're coming at me, if you're like some kind of hostile or unknown and you're coming at me and you're confronting me, obviously I'm not going to lift my chin up and put my hands down. That's totally different. What I will do is keep my chin down, lift my hands up. I will step back. I will create space so that I can see more of what's happening, because I don't know, you got buddies. You know, I don't know if there's what my surroundings have. I don't know if there's weapons available to me. So I'm going to get my hands up, but I am going to broaden my perspective. This is something that we talked about when Andrew Huberman was on here. Broadening your perspective, opening up your field of vision truly calms you. It calms you down. So that's one of the steps of detachment. So take a step back, lift your chin, look around, and then take a breath. A nice slow breath. Because this is another thing that's going to calm you down. It's another thing that's going to let you get control over your emotions. And this is something that people intuitively... You remember when you were a little kid and you'd be having a temper tantrum?
I've seen it done, yeah.
Okay, when your kids are having a temper tantrum, have you ever said like, hey, just take a breath? And this is something okay, let me give you a better example. You get hurt, or your kid gets hurt, and they're, right?
Yep.
What do you tell them? Hey, take a breath, calm down, like take a breath. That's what we tell people to do.
That's crazy how you said that example, because I was watching old videos of my son, like did something, he tripped over. It was a funny video, but anyway, he at the end of the video, he trips over something, falls down. I was like, what kind of hit his knee or whatever. Same deal. And it literally played out on the video. But I was just watching that video, so I was like,
and so did you tell him to take a breath?
Yeah. On the video, I was like, I said breathe.
Yep.
I was like, breathe. And he's trying to breathe. It's funny. Yeah. It's a very, very appropriate
when
example.
Hickson was on here, Hickson wrote a book called Breathe. Right? So there's a reason for this.
Yeah.
And it's proven by experience of people that have been in pressure situations, and it's proven through doctors who can tell you about the physiological impact of taking a nice slow breath. So that's what we're doing. This is going to help you detach in these pressure situations. Now listen, here's another little like a note. Let's say you and I work together and you're pissed off. Yeah. This is a lot different than you and I don't know each other and you're confronting me. Right? That's a self-defense situation. Hands are coming up. I'm still going to de-escalate. I'm going to step back. I'm going to create space, all those things. I'm trying to de-escalate. And by the way, I'm trying to get detached as well. Because let's say, you bumped into, or I bumped into your girlfriend and spilled drinks on you and now you're all mad.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know you, but now you're all mad. You're coming at me. Should I escalate my anger because you're coming at me? Or because you yell a swear at me and you push me? Should I let my anger get me? No, I should not, because then bad things are going to happen. Instead, I should be stepping back, creating distance, looking around, getting my hands into a defensive yet non-threatening, open aspect towards you. That's what I need to do. Now, if you and I, that's in a life threat or a self-defense situation. But in just a normal, you and I are talking and you start getting pissed, but you and I work together, what I'm probably going to do as I step back, as I take a breath, as I broaden my field, I'm probably going to just nod my head and let you know that I'm listening to what you're saying. And we're going to talk more about listening. But that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And as I wrote about in Extreme Ownership, I'm going to relax, look around, make a call. That was the earliest way of me trying to teach Seth how to detach. Was me saying, me writing on his Humvee window, hey, things are going wild. Step 1, relax. Step 2, look around. Step 3, make a call. That's the earliest sort of version of me trying to convey this message to someone. I didn't know how to say detach yet. It didn't compute. I was just trying to tell him the physical act of what to do. Freaking relax, bro. Look around, see what else is going on. Okay, now make a call. Now, here's the deal on this stuff. You can't see anything when you're in the thing. You can't see anything when you're in the thing. And the solution to the problem isn't in the problem. And look, there's a mass shooting that just happened in a school. Horrible. people keep saying, "Oh, when are you gonna? What are you gonna say about it?" I need to see some after actions reports. I need to find out what happened. I don't know what happened. One of the things that I could tell you as you train people to handle horrible situations like that, you need to teach people to detach. Because if they're not detached, they can't see the solution to the problem. All they see is what's right in front of them. So if you've got a shooter, an active shooter in a building, and you go into that building and you haven't been trained properly, you're going to get focused on that active shooter. Then if you think, oh, the active shooter isn't an active shooter anymore, it's a barricaded shooter, you're going to, oh, that's a barricaded shooter. Now I'm going to follow this other tactic, technique, or procedure. Because you're focused on what's right in front of you. You're focused on that piece of information that you have. And you're not going to take a step back and go, hey, what's really happening right now? Who can give me a report? Who has accountability for the students? How many students are there? How many are missing? Where are they located? Who's assembling that big picture? You know who's assembling that big picture? Someone that's detached from the situation. And it is not easy to train people to do that. It used to take me a while to get a SEAL. Sometimes a SEAL that had been in for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, to get them to be able to, oh, there's mayhem going on in this building. I need to be the one that takes a step back, looks at the big picture, and figures out what's actually happening. The putting people through that advanced SEAL tactical training, the primary purpose with the leaders was for me to get them to learn how to detach. And again, at the time, I didn't say it with these exact words. I'd say, you need to step back, look at the big picture. Like I was trying to convey it the best I could at the time. I might have used the word detach. But I know I would say things like, hey, take a step back, look around. You need to see this stuff. You need to look at the big picture. That was me trying to get these young SEAL leaders like Seth Stone. Hey, dude, relax and look around. That's what you need to do. Because once we could get those young SEAL leaders to actually do that, all of a sudden they could solve these complex problems that we would throw at them. If they couldn't detach, if no one in a platoon detached, no one would solve the problem and they would get slaughtered. Yeah. If one person could take a step back and say, oh, wait, we shouldn't keep going down this hallway, or we shouldn't keep moving up this street, or we shouldn't keep going up this ravine, or we should go backwards right now, or we should flank them. If one person can see that, they win. If nobody sees it, they get slaughtered. So my primary goal with the leaders, teaching them how to lead, the first thing they had to do was be able to detach. Now, once you detach, then you can see. Then you teach them, okay, here's how you want to use the terrain. Here's the effective way to maneuver. Here's where you want to concentrate your forces. Like, all those things are great. If you can't detach, you can't do any of those things. It's a lot harder than it looks. It's a lot harder than it seems. And the hype and the emotion and the energy, it tends to make us not want to detach. And the natural tendency that we have as human beings is to focus on what's right in front of us. This is the natural tendency. That's how we survived as hunter-gatherers. As a hunter-gatherer, you either, okay, if you're a hunter, guess what? You got to be focused on, you see movement and it's a freaking pig that you're going to kill with a bow and arrow or a spear or whatever. You need to hyper-focus on that thing. As an individual human, you need to hyper-focus on that thing. If you're walking around and you see movement and it's a tiger, you need to focus on that thing. It needs to become your number one priority. In order to survive, you need to focus. You need to get hyper-focused. And that's what we're programmed for. And there's sometimes, as an individual, you got to do that sometimes. It's actually a great thing to have. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden a car is coming up on the sidewalk. You focus on that thing so you can avoid it. You ever seen that, like when they're trying to get a robot to like catch a ball? It has to do 8 billion calculations in 0.2 seconds to catch a ball. I don't know if there's a robot that can catch like a fastball from a pitcher.
Yeah, like a humanoid robot.
Yeah, like a humanoid robot. Even one with the size, like with a glove the size of a catcher's mitt, or I can almost guarantee you that they can't make one that could hit a baseball bat. I don't know.
I've never seen one. If that's
There's a billion little calculations that have to get made.
Yeah.
And I've also heard like baseball players when the ball leaves the pitcher's hand, like they're already predicting where it's going to be. I mean, obviously they are, because they can hit it with a freaking skinny little bat. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So there's times where this is fully beneficial, and that's what our natural tendency is to get focused on this thing that's right in front of us. But as leaders, and honestly, in some situations as individuals, you're going to have a problem if you do that. And I was thinking about this. I don't know if I'm 100% right, but it mostly has to do when you're dealing with humans, when you're dealing with a human threat. Because humans do coordinated attacks.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Like, a wolf, you might get attacked by a pack of wolves. You'll lose just because they all attack you at the same time.
Yeah.
You might get eaten by a pack of sharks, but it's not because one distracted you and the other one snuck up. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a difference between mob attacks, which I think is what most animals do, and what humans do, which is humans are setting you up like a sucker and flanking you, right? That's what humans do. That's what like a sucker punch is, right? Oh, a sucker punch is like, oh, you're there talking to me and I'm like, I'll beat you. And boom, my buddy punches you in the side of the head or hits you with a bottle from behind. Yeah. That's what humans do. Humans are savages. And so even as individuals, sometimes if you get target fixation, you're going to have a problem. So when we're in complex situations, there could be an emergency, right? Emergency, a fire, a vehicle accident. There's a lot of stuff going on. Combat situations, obviously. And you know what else? This is where you make that mental transition. An argument with someone. Yeah. Maybe not even an argument, but a debate with someone. Yes. You ever seen someone get lured in an argument and just flanked?
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't detach. A Few Good Men.
Yes.
Right? That whole thing is just a big flank, right? I'm going to get this guy so mad and so emotional that when I ask him this question, he's going to expose himself.
Yep.
And that's what Tom Cruise does, right? You're goddamn right. I ordered the code red. That's exactly what he does.
Yep.
The Colonel in that movie, Jack Nicholson?
Nicholson, yes, sir.
Jack Nicholson, he didn't detach.
Nope.
He could have seen through that so easily.
Yep.
He could have been like, no, I absolutely would not order that. Imagine if he was calm.
Yeah.
He didn't. That's a perfect example of how we can let this idea bite us.
Yeah.
So if perhaps, what's the Colonel's name in that movie?
Jessup.
If Colonel Jessup, maybe if he would have gone through my land warfare training back in the day,
sure.
you would have been like, oh, I'm about to get flanked by homeboy, by young Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Colonel Jessup would have said, actually, no, negative. There's no way I'd give that order. But instead he got emotional. He got flanked like a little punk.
Yep.
So imagine how much that happens to us or can happen to us. So that's what we have to learn how to do in everything. And here's a little connection I'm going to make for you. There's a connection between being humble and being able to detach. And the connection is, if you're not humble, if you got a big ego, you think you're the center of the world, right? You think you are the center of the world. And when you think you're the center of the world, you can't see anyone else's emotions. You can't see anyone else's moves. Their moves don't even mean anything to you because you're just looking at everything is Jocko-centric, echo-centric. It's all about me. So I don't see that you're getting mad. I don't see that you're getting frustrated. And that's what we have to be careful about. Because if you think you're the most important thing and you've got that gravity, it's pulling everything in, and all like other ideas, they don't make it. Nothing else can survive this strong gravity that you got. You don't see anything else.
Yeah. What's the difference between detaching and let's say situational awareness, right? Is there a difference?
if they're not the same thing, then they're damn close.
Yeah.
I would say, I would say this. Detachment is senior to situational awareness. If you're not detached, you're not going to have any situational awareness.
Yeah.
If you are detached, you will have much more situational awareness. Detachment is senior because not only am I detached so I can see what's happening in the situation, I'm also aware of my emotions. I'm aware of your emotions. Does the situation include everything? Okay, then they're probably the same thing. If we're saying that situation overall includes your emotions, my emotions, our physical space that we're in, everything that's occurring, if that's the situation, okay, then they're probably pretty close to the same thing. I generally think of situational awareness as to being what's our physical thing that's happening, but it's not too much different to say, oh, Echo's a possible attacker.
Yeah.
Is he agitated?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be situational awareness. Oh, right. I can see he's frustrated. I can see his fists are clenched. Yeah. Okay, that's all situational awareness. Yeah. So they're really similar things. But I still think detachment is a senior element.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have detachment, it ain't happening. You're not going to have situational awareness at all. Yeah,
it feels like most of the times anyway that you bring up detaching is when you're kind of in when the chaotic situation kind of already started, you know, where it's almost like, I guess you can constantly be detached though, right? I mean, not completely, like how you said, I mean, you know, every time I heard you explain it, you're like, don't go too far with this thing, right? You don't care about nothing or whatever, but seems like detaching, when I imagine it, I guess, is, when something like happens to kind of escalate or whatever, and then it's like, okay, then you should kind of detach or whatever.
And you know what? That's a good point. Check this out. The black belt, he's likely not even going to get the situation to a point where he has to detach because he's already detached and he sees it coming and he doesn't have to worry about it because he already outflanked it.
That's the game. Yeah.
That's the game. That's what we're trying to do.
Unless he's going up against another black belt.
Unless he's going up against another black belt.
Then thus begins the psychological game within the game.
Yeah, and then you end up in straight jiu-jitsu, where how many moves ahead, you know, am I to you? Am I 5 moves ahead and you're only 4? I'm going to win. If I'm 5 moves ahead, but you're 7, you're going to win. That's what's happening. So there is a connection between the more self-centered we are, the less the rest of the world matters, and therefore it's hard to step outside of your own world.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
You know, for instance, a little kid that loses their temper.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because they're the whole world.
In the store.
Yeah, in the store. They don't care about anything else. They want that freaking ice cream cone.
Yep.
That's what's up. So they don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to detach at all.
Yeah.
And they don't care about anything else. That's when. So the younger you are, you're really important.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful with that. Here's another little element. Detachment is what actually allows you to think strategic. It's what actually allows you to think strategic, because the definition of what I started with, of saying, hey, I'm worried about the person that's shooting me right now. That's short-term thinking. Now, do I have to focus on that right now because I'm getting shot at? Yes, I do. The minute I eliminate that threat, I better take a step back and look around and get my platoon into a position where I don't have to worry about threats, so I can see where we need to go next. So unless we are detached, unless you take a minute, you know, if you're in business and every day you show up to work, the phone's ringing, the emails are coming in, you're solving this problem for a client, you're dealing with operations, you're dealing with sales, you got all these problems, you're just, that's what you're doing all day? Cool. But you're not detached. And therefore, you're thinking about tactical things that are right in front of you. And you might win the day tactically, but you look up in 6 months and you got some issues because you didn't order enough material for the next project and you didn't hire enough. Like, all these problems are happening. Strategic problems are happening. So unless you're able to detach, you're not able to think strategic. So think about how this impacts your life. I mean, this is, you know, from you, Echo Charles, you've said before to me that the most important thing that you've taken away from hanging out with me for the last however many years is thinking strategic instead of tactical. And the way that translates to the civilian world is you think long-term instead of short-term. And that, I agree with you. And we have you've heard me say before, and you pulled a clip from one of the musters where a guy asked me, how often should I think strategic? And I said, you should think strategic all the time.
Yeah. You said it different, but yeah.
Yeah, I was a little more amped at the time. But if you can't detach, if you don't take a step back, you are not thinking strategic.
Yeah.
That's why this is like a superpower. Detachment allows you to not focus on the short term. It avoids tactical thinking. Now, it also avoids you getting emotional and making bad decisions, because that's when you make bad decisions. Are you guaranteed to make a bad decision when you're emotional? No. But, there's a real good chance.
Pretty reliable.
Yeah, it's pretty reliable that an emotional decision is not the best decision. It's pretty reliable. Now, does this mean I'm sitting there saying, and for everyone that's, out there going, he's saying you shouldn't have any emotions? That's actually not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you shouldn't let your emotions run your decisions.
Yeah.
Control over your emotions does not mean not having emotions. Because emotions are important, as we like to say.
Yes, sir.
Emotions are important. My emotions are important. My team's emotions are important. My boss's emotions are important. The competitor or the enemy emotions are important. And how can they be important? Well, if you're mad about something that you need to do, are you going to do a good job when you do it? If you work for me, are you going to do your best job?
Probably not.
If, on the contrary, if you're super excited about something, are you going to do a good job? Yeah. What if you're my enemy and your morale is low and you're emotionally drained? Is it going to be an opportune time to fight you? Yes, it is. Yeah. What if I've done something to your people and now you're mad and you're going to fight with vengeance? You're angry. Is that a good time for me to attack you if you're my enemy? No. What about my boss? My boss is super angry about something. Is now a good time to present a new solution to it? No.
Is that like the old classic, don't tell your wife to calm down?
That is part of the classic, don't tell your wife to calm down.
Because she's emotional, whatever, and vice versa.
Yeah, vice versa.
Isn't, but when you say, hey, calm down.
That's not a good move.
That's not a strategic move.
So you can see how emotions play into each one of those elements that I just talked about.
Yeah.
So by the way, I have to know my emotions too, right? If I've got some massive task and I know I'm already drained or angry about it, if I'm mad at you and yet I've got to go and discuss a project with you and I'm already mad that you didn't do something, is that a good time for me to go in there and talk to you? No, it's not. So what I need to do, and a way to think, the emotions, our own emotions and other people's emotions, up, down, and across the chain of command, need to be in the calculus of our decision making. That's what I need to do. And a lot of times, in current times, this is 2022, we don't take other people's emotions into our calculus. So you have to measure. You have to measure if and how what you are going to say, how it's going to impact your family, if it's going to impact your family, your team, yourself. You have to measure that. Is it going to make them angry? Is it going to make them upset? Is it going to make them lose motivation? Is it going to crush their morale? And if you don't put all the emotional element into the calculus, you're going to get the wrong answer. And by the way, you won't be able to assess any of these emotions if you're not detached. You won't see your own emotions. You won't see other people's emotions. You won't be like, oh, my wife is mad right now because you're mad. So you don't see them as being mad. Yeah. And even if you do see them as being mad, you're mad, so you just get madder at them for being mad. Yeah. What you have to do is be able to detach and get some level of control over your emotions. So when I talk about detaching from your emotions, I'm not talking about having no emotions. And by the way, if you detach from your emotions too much and now you're interacting with your team just thinks you're a jerk. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening. So
Yeah, like you don't care.
Oh yeah, like
that's
you don't care
a big
at
deal.
all. Oh, that's a huge deal.
But like when your boss doesn't care, or is distracted, or just when you have that feeling is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if you give that feeling to your wife.
Oh yeah.
You know,
This
something
is
that's
what you're talking about. To me, this is all you're talking about. It's like because that kind of is the deal, right? Where you lit every single list item. Or every topic you talked about literally has directly to do. I mean, look, some people are not married. I get it. But if you are, even girlfriend, boyfriend scenario, whatever, that applies to you and your wife. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
and your kids.
So the kids, there's
And
you
your
explain.
kids.
Yeah, it's more like, I don't know. It's like it is the same thing. It's the same format for sure. But and you explain this too, where it's like your kids are gonna be different than like other people because when you have kids, that's a very unique relationship. It's very unique. They're like you can't just switch out one kid for another kid. You see what I'm saying?
And make the connection. You're so close to make. What's the connection?
The
You know what
emotions.
the emotions. That's
Yeah,
the connection.
exactly
That's what
right.
makes it. You know, your emotional attachment to your kids is so strong. It's so strong that you have to be even more cautious in how you calculate the emotions up and down the chain.
So it's kind of like the difference between a muffin and a cupcake.
But I don't know the difference between those two.
It's the same thing. One just has more sugar in it.
Is that the truth?
I don't know.
Which one has more sugar?
Cupcake. Get it?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I guess.
The kids have more sugar. They have more emotions.
More emotions.
Are involved in the equation. But you handle them the same way.
Right.
Try not to eat them.
Yep.
80 to 90% of the time. See what I'm saying?
Yep. So you can't see any of these emotions if you're not detached. So go back to the first topic of the day. Take a step back, relax, look around, take a breath, get detached, and then put the emotions, comprehend the emotions, put them into your calculus as you're making decisions, as you're communicating with people, and that's going to put you in a better scenario. Now, here's another thing that you can utilize for detachment, which is very powerful, not just for detachment, but for life and definitely for leadership. And that is actually listening to what other people are saying. And I've been saying for a couple of years now, listening is the most underrated skill in leadership. And I think I have to take it a little bit further. And I was thinking about a good way to explain listening, because listening doesn't just mean be quiet. Okay, Echo's talking now. As soon as you're done, I'm ready to present my ideas back at you. I don't know where we did this. I think we probably just did this on a Q&A a while ago, but people have often asked me, what is my process for reading a book? And I've talked through my process for reading a book and reading a book for the podcast, really. So if I'm reading a book for the podcast, I'm going to read it actively. It's an active reading. I'm not passively, the words aren't just coming into my head and there they are. And no, I'm actively reading the words. That means I am putting the words into context in my own head, in the story that it is, and then how my mind understands that story and what the context in the story is, and then how that context fits in my head. Because let's face it, if I'm reading With the Old Breed, there's context to that story, to that particular sentence, that particular paragraph, that particular word. There's context around it. And it's not just a word, and it's not just a sentence, it's not just a paragraph. There's a whole world there that you have to try and understand, this context that you have to have. And then you have to put it into your own context. And look, you don't have to have been in combat to understand or to put your own context around it. You go, oh, these guys haven't eaten for 6 days. Hey, I remember yesterday I didn't have any lunch, and by the end of the day I was starving. God, now these guys are at 6 days. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to really try and engage your own brain and overlay your own experiences on it, and try and understand and truly put yourself into other people's perspective. What do they know that I can try and understand? So to me, that's active reading. Really active reading. And that's what we need to do with listening. Actively listen. Actively try and understand what you're trying to say. Actively try and understand your perspective. What does Echo know that I don't know right now? How can I actively try and understand what he's saying? And of course, one of the biggest obstacles to truly listening is having a big giant ego. And I think Echo doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, Jocko, you know, I always put my hips over here on an arm. Like, oh, Echo's trying to give me instructions on jiu-jitsu. Oh. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's what our ego gets in the way, because how could anybody possibly know anything more than me? Mm-hmm. So we don't really listen. And I think that as we look at society today, there is a lot of talking and not a lot of listening. And it turns into mayhem. And here's the thing. Talking, no listening, and therefore no bridges, no common ground found, no changes of opinion. People don't change opinion, right? I got my opinion. I'm right. I'm not going to change my opinion. That's where people are at. Yeah. That's where the vast majority of people are at.
Seems like it, yeah.
Well, I shouldn't even say the vast. That's where the loudest people are at, I guess is worth saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an issue.
I think
it's a huge issue.
I think it's an issue for myself, even a lot of the time.
It's an issue for everybody. Myself, yourself, everybody that's in the world. Yeah, hey, I kind of know the deal here. Yeah, I know this. Yeah. You're not going to tell me anything that I don't know.
Yeah.
And what's horrible about that is, if you were presenting a plan to me for an operation, mm-hmm. and I have a difference of opinion than you, but I don't listen to what you're saying, are we going to come up with a better plan or a worse plan?
Probably worse, yeah.
It's going to be a worse plan.
Yeah.
Whereas if I go, oh, Echo's presenting a plan to me, let me truly, actively listen to what he's saying. Mm. Let me see how that fits into the idea that I have. And where's the common ground? And and we got some contradictory ideas? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Who's right? And you know what I actually say? How is Echo right? That's the biggest trick right there. Yeah. When it comes to leadership, one of the biggest tricks in leadership is, how is Echo right? I'm the leader, but how is Echo right? How can I make Echo right? How can I listen to him? How can I give him the advantage here? Not how can I prove him wrong? I don't want you to be wrong. I want you to be right.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to do. Now, when we listen, just like reading, when we actively listen, we actively read, ask yourself, or ask them and yourself earnest questions. Put yourself in their shoes in real life, and this is hard to do. Mm-hmm. In real life, yeah. Truly, how would I feel if I were that person? And sometimes like, Echo, Echo didn't pay for his phone. He got his phone cut off, right? So I go, what a loser. Mm-hmm. Like he's an idiot. He deserves it.
Yeah.
That's as far like, oh, well, okay. If I was in Echo's shoes and I didn't pay my phone bill and it got cut off, I would think I was a loser. That's like my perspective. Yeah. Instead of saying, all right, what's the situation he's in? How did he end up here? What doesn't he understand about the world that I understand? How come he doesn't understand those things? That's what it is. It's like, it takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes effort to get there. Instead of just writing it off, and I take my entire worldview, and I take your little chunk of experience that you had by not paying your phone bill, and I go, oh, in my worldview, you're a loser.
Yeah. It's true. It's so true.
And so then how can I help you? I can't.
Yeah.
I can't help you. I can't help myself. I can't help anybody else. All I say is, oh, anyone that does that's a loser. Right. It doesn't solve anything. So that's what I think is a huge piece for us, is as a leader and as a person. And look, those two terms for me are kind of interchangeable. I don't know, that sounds crazy. But this is something that I started saying, I think, when Leadership Strategy and Tactics came out, which is, if you interact with other human beings, you're in a leadership position.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're the boss.
Yeah.
And I'm the subordinate, and I'm the only subordinate you have. I'm still in a leadership position.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I have one peer, and I don't see you, even though you're the boss, and I have one peer. I'm still in a leadership position. If you interact with other people, you're in a leadership position because you're trying to lead them to do the right thing, to move in the right direction. And does this mean you're always like trying to influence?
Yeah.
No, because I might be like, oh, Echo's giving me some direction. It seems like a good call. Cool. I'm going to go execute it. I don't need to like, well, hold on. Let me give you my perspective. No, I'm not talking about that at all. Am I trying to build a relationship with you? Yes, I am. Am I trying to build a relationship so that I can better support you in the future if you happen to tell me something to do that doesn't make sense? Sure.
Yeah, it's good that you differentiate pretty often to the difference between and what you call the traditional leader. And but what's the other one? You don't have a term for the other one.
I certainly do. The silent leader.
Silent leader. Yeah, you're right. Huh? So even though you don't talk about that part, we just mentioned, but usually it's kind of like the silent leader is more of like sort of an maybe influencer type, not influencer like how we know influencer today, but someone who just wants to influence people to do the right thing for everybody, essentially, right? And then the traditional leader is the guy who wants to be the boss and wants everyone to listen to what they say.
Yep, everyone listen to me.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of everything I just talked about, which is I'm saying if you're a leader, you should be listening.
Yes, exactly right. But I think that even the word leader, and I've said this before, where the word leader feels like the boss because there are people like that.
Yeah, it feels like the tradition.
Yeah, and because there's people like that. Like we all know somebody, at least one person, probably 20 people who are like that. Where it's like, you can tell they want to always take charge. They always want people to listen to them. They always want to do it their way, kind of thing. And for better or worse or whatever. I'm just saying that's when you think of the word leader. That's kind of what you think of automatically in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the I guess long-term campaigns from me as a human being on earth is to convince people and let them know that even if you're a brand new guy in a SEAL platoon, you're in a leadership position. Yeah. A brand new guy with no experience, you're in a leadership position. Even if you're a brand new construction worker with no experience, you're in a leadership position. Even if you're a lineman out there, you're an apprentice lineman. You have no skills. You're in a leadership position.
So of the 4 laws of, here's the thing, there's no escaping. Unless you're a hermit, you're a leader. Right. So there's no escaping it. Unless you're maybe a newborn baby. I don't know. But, and this is what I gathered, on listening to you guys. So, the 4th law of combat, right? Decentralized command. As we know as decentralized. And what is that? The tagline or whatever, everybody leads, right? So even if you are the leader, designated across you're the boss even. Yep. You're the boss at a company or whatever. You're the dad of the family, whatever. You are the straight up boss. But decentralized command, which is laws of combat, says everybody leads. So even the people who are subordinate to you, quote unquote, they have to lead. And whose job is it for them to know how to lead? Your job. Yeah. So everyone's the leader, no matter if you're the boss or not. Like you can be the new guy or whatever, and most of us aren't the new guy in a SEAL platoon. I'll tell you that. And you may or may not know that, but most of us are not. But like if you're just the new guy at work, or you're the youngest brother, or you're the, I've heard and I have this scenario. I'm gonna call it hypothetical, even though it might not be hypothetical. It's not me, that's true, but it's some people I know, where the husband feels a little bit, like emasculated sometimes. And not by any abuse or anything like that, but it's just, I think it's like a classic case of, what you hear, like the husband's always trying to like happy wife, happy life kind of a thing, and maybe went too far with it. And maybe now he finds himself in a position where he's just responding and doing everything that the wife says, and the wife doesn't seem happy, kind of a scenario. I feel like with this attitude that like if you understand 100%, not just like my situation, sure, I guess I could if you understand 100% that you have the responsibility to be the leader, and I'm not saying be the boss, I'm not saying dominate, it always feels like that ends up being absolutely correct as far as solving any problems within any interpersonal relationship.
So let me just restate your your comment there. What you're saying is no matter where I am in a relationship, in a platoon, in a business, in a marriage, if my attitude is I'm in a leadership position, I'm going to lead through this problem.
The silent leader way.
That's going to be a positive thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you are correct.
Absolutely. Like it's
that's why at Echelon Front, that's why we say leadership is the solution.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what the problem is.
Yeah.
Wife's not happy, leadership problem. On me, by the way.
Yeah.
On me. Now, look, can you occasionally get a miserable scenario?
Yeah.
Where the wife is there's probably and actually what you end up there is if you break that down from a leadership perspective, you're probably not aligned in your marriage.
Yeah.
Because that's the one kind of killer. That's one killer. So when I say leadership is a solution, leadership is the solution to all your problems. There's one problem that leadership is the solution for, but you're not going to solve the problem. That is alignment. That is, we are not going to the same place.
Yeah.
So if your business partner is going in one direction, like to a different place, and you're going in another direction, and it's a different place, you're going to have you won't be able to make decisions that are unified. Mm-hmm. If your wife wants to, have 20 kids, and you don't want to have any, you're not going to be able to work it out. Yeah. There's no working that out, right? You are heading to a different place. You're going to a different world, right? You're going to two totally different places. Mm-hmm. Vice versa is true too. You want to, what did I say? Your wife want to have 20 kids? If it's the opposite, it's the same thing. Yeah. You want to have 20 kids, your wife doesn't have any, you're going to have a problem. Yeah. It's going to be a difficult situation. You're not aligned. Hmm. If one person wants to have a software company and I want to, you and I start designing a little computer game thing. Yeah. And then you say, hey, we should start building these in a factory after we make 3 of them by ourselves. And I say, no, let's just contract someone to do that. We should just make the software. Mm. And you go, no, we should make the hardware. And I say, no, we should make the software. And if you and I can't agree, we're heading to 2 different places, we're going to have 2 different companies, and you need to go do yours and I need to go do mine. So where leadership plays into that is I need to be able to identify, where are we actually going? What is our goal? And here's the thing. In most companies, you can find alignment. That's why people say we're not aligned. I go, oh, hold on a minute. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got a company, you got Acme freaking mousetraps, right?
Yeah, mousetraps.
Echo's got Acme mousetraps. And he says, oh, people on my team aren't aligned. Okay, what do they not want to be able to make money? No, of course they want to make money. Does everyone on the team want to make money? Yes, everyone on the team wants to make money. Does everybody on the team want to make a good mousetrap? Yes, everybody on the team wants to make a good mousetrap. Does everyone want to serve the client? Yes. Because if we serve the client, we'll sell them mousetraps. So you can usually you can take any company, and most of the 99, this is a big percentage, 99% of the time, there's alignment. And in a rare 1%, we're not aligned. And you actually don't want to make mousetraps, or you don't want to manufacture mousetraps. Let's say I want to build a factory and manufacture mousetraps, and all you want to do is market them, and you don't want any of this factory stuff. You don't want to hire a bunch of people. You just want to get them shipped from overseas. You and I are going to have a problem. Yeah. We're not aligned. Mm-hmm. We're not aligned. I want to build a manufacturing company. You want to build a marketing company, and we're adamant about it. Now, look, we might be able to find alignment and say, hey, you know what? If we manufacture them and then you market them well, we kind of are on the same page. Yeah. But if your true goal is not to manufacture anything and my true goal is we're going to have a problem. So alignment is one of the most critical things there are. In order to get there, guess what? I got to listen to what you have to say.
Yep.
And if we're not aligned, we're going to have a problem. So we got to pay attention to that. And this brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about today. And this is something, I've probably focused on it a little bit more a few years ago with a simple statement that you'll recognize when I say this: free your mind. Mm-hmm. Right? We did all kinds of things where I said free your mind. I would occasionally post free your mind.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Because our minds have a tendency to be closed. And not just to be closed, but to be closing. So that's the way our human minds are. In general, they tend to be closed and closing. So they're already closed up and they're trying to close even more. Yeah. Why is that? Well, it's safer.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah.
I'm not learning anything. There's no risk. There's nothing to misunderstand. It's just easier across the board. If I just close up my mind, I don't have to accept anything new. I'm safe here. I'm used to it.
Safe. Yeah.
We also have our ego involved. And our ego is keeping that mind shut because I don't want to have to admit that I'm wrong. I don't want to have to tell anybody else that they're right.
Yep.
I don't want to look like I don't know all the answers, so I stay in my own little world. You know, it's like, oh, I'm a boxer, so I'm not going to do jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Remember those days? Yes. Like, no, boxing, oh, you try and take me down, I'm just going to knock you out.
Yep.
Remember those days?
Yep.
Like, it's crazy talk now, but that was a real thing. Well, I don't have to learn jiu-jitsu, I'll just knock you out.
Yep.
Oh, okay. How'd that work out, bro? But that's a closed mind, and that's ego thinking, oh, I don't need to learn anything new. I have all the answers. Oh, I got that uppercut, son. And no, look, I love boxing. Boxing is an awesome form of self-defense that everybody should learn how to box. You should absolutely learn how to box. There's two, your fists are great weapons. You should also learn Muay Thai because your elbows and your knees are good weapons as well. You should also learn wrestling because you got to be able to. So you see where I'm going with this. But there was a time where strikers, boxers, kickboxers would say, oh, I don't need to learn jiu-jitsu because I'll just knock you out. And that was just arrogance and ego. And part of it is also might have been just ignorance, not just arrogance, but ignorance.
Yeah.
Because you think, oh, someone's going to charge at me, I'll just knock them out.
Yeah.
Man, that's so much harder than you think.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a lot to that. There's a thing called sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So yeah, and that's what Horian Gracie, one of the great founders of jiu-jitsu, that's what he would say, where it's like it's a painful realization when you realize that you spent 20, sometimes 30 years at this in effortful, just hard work, doing
training
this
hard.
art. Yeah. And then without it being proved to you, like you're not going to admit that it was a mistake. You just can't do it. You have too much invested in it,
Yeah, that was a very, you want to talk about a very hard thing to have happen to you.
Yeah.
Is you've been training whatever martial art, whatever, and they use this, do they still use the term traditional martial art?
Yes.
So you've been training a traditional martial art, take your pick, for 24 years. And like you said, hard training. Yep. You've memorized the kata.
Oh yeah.
You've done the drills. Mm-hmm. You've done the sparring even. Yeah. And then so you're 20 years deep, 25 years deep. You've competed even. Yep. Competed. And you've knocked people out and stuff. And you've won. You've been a champion. All these things. And then all of a sudden someone comes in and says, none of that's going to work.
Yeah,
and by the way, it's going to work. What I do is going to work 10 times out of 10. Like that's what my percentages are. So you're a boxer and I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm going to take you down and choke you 10 times in a row. It seems unbelievable, right? They go 100 times, maybe someone gets a puncher's chance and someone gets knocked out, right? But I can law of averages say you're a 100% boxer and I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. 10 times out of 10. So if you and I go, okay, cool, let's go again. You try and knock me out, you're getting taken down, you're getting choked. Let's go again. You try and knock me out, you're going to get taken down, choked out. That's what's happening. So that was a really hard fact to face. Yeah. And it happened across the country as jiu-jitsu blue belts. Yeah. Blue belts were dojo storming. Like walking into traditional martial arts studio, going, I'll take anybody in here. Yeah. And then double leg, cross-side. People didn't even know what the guard was. It wasn't like they were getting in the guard. Right. They were just mounting and choking.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of especially, I mean, nowadays is different Because
it's totally different.
And here's kind of, in a way, it's kind of more the same though, right? Where okay, so you look at the UFC, right? The pinnacle of, like, nowadays it's not, UFC 1 is different than UFC now.
Oh.
So UFC 1 was this art.
Style versus style.
Yeah, this style versus this style versus this
Actually, you know what? You're right. It wasn't just style versus, it was art versus art.
Yeah.
Because even in jiu-jitsu, we have different styles of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it was literally a jiu-jitsu practitioner against a boxer.
Right.
Or a wrestler against an Aikido guy.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You name it. It was art against art.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't even really calculate the fact that there's a huge difference between somebody that wrestled in high school, somebody that wrestled in college, and somebody that wrestled in the Olympics. Or someone that did judo at the judo club, someone that did judo in college, and someone that did judo on the Olympic stage. There's a huge difference between, but they didn't really calculate that.
Yeah, not really. And I guess I'm just maybe speaking on what actually played itself out, right? So UFC 1, and before UFC 1, there was Gracie in Action, the Gracie in Action tapes, right? Which was essentially one-on-one challenges.
By the way, I have James, if you're out there listening right now, I have your Gracie in Action tapes. Sorry.
VHS tape. Where it's like, and if you don't know what that is, what it is essentially guys would come in doubting this new jiu-jitsu thing. They're like, oh, I would beat them, you know? And the Gracies, they would say, yeah, you can come and challenge any one of our guys or whatever. And then after so many people responded to that challenge, they started taping it. And they would just beat these guys up. Not bad. It wasn't a bully situation. It was literally like to prove to them that, hey, this way is better at fighting. That's it. It's not like, yo, we're going to kill everyone or nothing like that. So just time after time after time. And then if you see it, you can see the guy. And this is on a bunch of them too, where the guy would be like, oh, like almost like he's saying that didn't count.
Yeah, let's
like
go
he
again.
didn't get it. Yeah.
I have personally experienced that.
Oh, yeah. That's a common thing.
Yeah, I was lucky because I was doing jiu-jitsu, kind of like legitimately doing jiu-jitsu before it was popular at all.
Yeah.
So I kind of had some of those Gracie in Action experiences where guys were just confused.
Yeah.
Like just legitimately. And I found that usually 3 or 4 submissions before they even start to comprehend what's happening. Like the first one, they're just baffled. You know, you're going against a wrestler, you're going against a boxer. Wrestlers would get especially confused because it just didn't make sense of what just happened. Like a boxer, I guess a boxer would be so confused. They're like, wait, what are we doing on the ground? Why am I down there? Is this fighting? This isn't fighting. How can you knock me out when you just got your arm broke or you just got tapped out? Wrestlers it would be confusing to them because they don't even understand how these body positions that they've learned and that they've won and that they seem to have so much control, all of a sudden they're not working and they're getting tapped out. But so like the first submission is total disbelief. They're like, it's confusion and disbelief, and then okay, let's go again because they think, oh, I will keep I won't let them grab my arm. Yeah, exactly. And they don't let you grab their arm, and then you choke them.
Yeah, and that's how Horian describes it in a lot of those videos. Is it's like they can't accept it, right? So they'll be like, oh wait, I just need to go harder. Like I maybe was taking it easy on him. Maybe I got to focus a little bit more.
Yeah,
you know,
go faster, go harder.
Yeah, exactly right. But just like how you said, if you don't know jiu-jitsu, if you don't know the positions, you're just sort of on the ground. Like you don't know. Like even like the difference between guard and half guard, if you don't know what any of that even is, there's no difference.
There's no difference between guard, mount, nothing. There's no difference between
You will not remember it.
You have no idea what's happening.
If you're on the bottom, you'll remember versus if you're not on the bottom. Okay, there is that. But in jiu-jitsu, that part doesn't matter as much. You see what I'm saying? So it's backwards almost if you know jiu-jitsu versus if you don't. So these guys would be just confused the whole time. And then all of a sudden they're getting choked. And then if you don't know how it happens, you just like, oh, we just sort of wound up like that. So it seems kind of like a lucky position. We fell on the ground. It was a scramble, and he just ended up that way. Meanwhile, since they knew jiu-jitsu, they're methodically, specifically placing these guys in this position, then this position, then this position, then they can choke, and then they do it every one time after another, and then finally the guy accepts it. Now, this is back in the Gracie in Action days. So UFC 1, you don't have that luxury to be like, hey, let's do it again. Yeah. But still, nobody knew what was going on.
What was happening.
Now, keep in mind the difference between back then and today is back then no one knew jiu-jitsu at all. Yeah. They only knew their karate. They only knew their kickboxing. They only knew their art. Now everyone knows everything.
Yeah, it's totally
in
different.
one way or another. Like if you say, "Hey, show me mount," probably like, of course, mount. That's basic. Everyone knows mount. I don't care. This can be literally a karate guy.
Yeah.
Like remember Lyoto Machida, right? When everyone's like, "Oh, see, karate does work," and all the karate guys were like, "Yeah, we were saying this for years. We always knew karate worked." Yeah. Bro, Lyoto Mashida's black belt in jiu-jitsu.
He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And he's probably black belt level in a bunch of other things, you know. So it's just a different landscape. That's not the proving ground for art versus art anymore.
Yeah,
it's different.
Well, even I just made people mad just now, 3 minutes ago, when I said, well, a boxer against a jiu-jitsu. There's still some people out there that are like, bro, I just knocked this dude out when he came in on me. There's still people like that right now, even having the incredible vast sources of knowledge. And again, I love boxing. Everyone should train boxing, 100%. Boxing is a brutal martial art, and it's an incredible martial art. But if you're a pure boxer and you're going up against a jiu-jitsu guy, you're going to get choked out. I regret to inform you. So here's the thing. This is why I talk about opening up your mind. Because even when you choke someone, their mind doesn't want to open up. Then you arm lock them, their mind doesn't want to open up. Then you foot lock them, their mind they're still thinking like what you're saying. They're still like, no. Their mind, this is such a good example of how people's minds, how all of our minds wants to be closed because our ego's keeping it shut. We want to be in that safe area. We've got the sunk costs into what we've already done and what we already believe. And that is a problem. It's a problem for the world. So what we have to do, and I've been explaining this to people at Echelon Front, I've been explaining this to people. We actually have to pry open our minds. We have to pry open our minds. You have to force yourself to listen. You have to force yourself not just to listen, but to actually hear what other people are saying. You have to force yourself to consider other ideas. And honestly, the way that I force myself to consider other ideas is I want to use your idea. That's my goal. My goal is I want Echo to be right. When Echo says, hey, I've got a plan for how to do this, my goal is to say, that sounds good. Mm-hmm. Let's use your plan. How can I help you make this work? When my subordinate comes to me with a plan and says, hey, Jocko, this is what I think we should do, my goal is to use it. When you present an idea to me about politics or music or a video, my goal is to say, okay, how can I be on board with what you just said? How can I support you? And that's what I do to try and pry my brain open, because our minds are naturally closed and they are closing. So even when your mind gets opened up a little bit, it's still trying to close back up. That's what it's trying to do. It's pried open and it closes back up. That's what it's trying to do. And we have to work very hard to pry it open and then keep it open to new ideas.
You know how, like, in regards to like using the other person's plan, or you know, like pursuing that as like as a way. Mm-hmm. How does that? How should I say? How does that justify? You know, because you know how sometimes, and again, I'm thinking about maybe with your friends when you're young, or you know, with your wife or something, and it's like, hey, what are we doing for dinner, or where are we going to go eat? And then it's like, I don't know, where do you want to go? Oh, I don't know where you want to go. Right? You get that scenario. It happens sometimes, right? So how do you reconcile using the other person's plan in general versus making the decision yourself, kind of a scenario?
No, I mean, look, just like anything, there's a dichotomy. And if I say to my wife, where do you want to go for dinner? And she says, I don't care, where do you want to go? And I say, oh, I'm actually open for anything. I had a late lunch, so I'm not that hungry. And I know you haven't eaten today, so whatever you want's good with me. And then she says, no, you make the call. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, how long am I going to do that for? Before I say, cool, sounds like we're going to Raglan's. Right? It's easy, right? And then she's going to go, I didn't want that. Okay, cool. What did you want then? I actually wanted whatever.
So would it be, based off that hypothetical scenario, would it be actually even wiser to have not just maybe like 3 to 4 different options, maybe pre-contemplated, that kind of follow her interests a little bit too? Yeah. You know, you can she's wanting to make you feel like it was your call. So then you just say,
hey, how about we go to whatever, the place that you know she likes, and she goes, oh, okay, that'd be great, cool, we're good.
Yeah. Yes.
No big deal. So we're moving on.
Because I feel like
I don't even want to read that much into this. I don't want to make this into that big of a deal.
Well, I feel like it kind of can be sometimes. That's the thing.
It definitely can be.
And not so much the restaurant thing. I'm saying in general. So like, you know how, okay, so here's a common thing in my household where, it becomes 4:30, 5 o'clock, right? So here comes Mrs. Charles saying, hey, what are you thinking for dinner? Now, usually that's her jam. Usually she kind of, hey, I'm thinking this for dinner. I'm always pretty much always going to be like, good. You know why? Because I don't have any preference. I don't want to make that decision. I'm thinking about other stuff, to be honest. Is it a big deal? No, it's not a big deal. But I am thinking about other stuff. It makes it a lot easier for my brain, as feeble as it may be, to not have to make that decision.
Right.
Now, I do understand that sometimes she's in that same boat too, because she was thinking about a lot of stuff. And sometimes, not all the time, actually not most of the time, but sometimes she doesn't want to make that decision as well.
Okay.
She'll make the dinner.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have to think something up that everyone's going to like. And I understand, right? So that's the thing. It can be a thing. So sometimes people do just want you to make the decision.
Cool. Make one. See, no big deal.
Yeah.
No, that's not
but
crazy.
I'm just saying,
but
you got to balance. You got to balance.
I hate to go this hard and spend this much time, but like, if my wife says to me, no, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And I say where I actually want to go, and she doesn't want to go there, I can just look at her face and be like, oh, well, that's a bad call. So I'm probably going to say, actually, I feel like going to name one of her 3 favorite restaurants, and then we're good to go.
There you go. See, but that takes some pre-contemplation. You got to know her
not
favorite
really.
restaurant.
I don't have like a bunch of different restaurants,
or
either one of us doesn't have some big list. You know?
So you got the luxury.
The funny thing about my wife is she'll be like, she'll stray from the lesson learned. Which the lesson learned to me is, I'm going to a restaurant that I already know, what I'm going to get, and I'm going to get what I already know.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to the restaurant that I know, and I'm going to get what I already know. My wife will sometimes wish she needs to relearn the lesson, which is, so we want to try this new place. So I'll go to a new place with her.
Yeah.
And then as soon as she takes her first bite of the main course, she's looking at me like lesson learned again, right? Because let's face it. Now, occasionally, do you find a winner of like a new restaurant to put in the mix? Sure. You could find that new restaurant to put in the mix. But it's not very... What do you mean? What do you mean?
Okay. I'm not saying whatever, like that's not true, because it's probably true. But I'm saying...
What do you mean it's probably true? How often do you go to a restaurant and you're like, oh, wow, put this one in the mix?
Me? I don't know. But that
if
has
that
no
was
bearing.
true, you'd just be going to hundreds of restaurants. You'd have a list of hundreds of restaurants that you'd be going to all the time. Because every restaurant you go to is just in the mix now.
Yeah. To me, all sushi restaurants, with the exception of 2, are in the mix. Yeah, it's true. But my point is
hold on. Is there a hierarchy?
Yes.
See? So why would you not go one of the top 3 to 5 at the most?
Oh, there's the hierarchy isn't based on like how good it is, though.
Oh, then it's based on other stuff. But it's based
close
on
to my house.
Exactly.
If I'm getting delivery, maybe some price scenarios, and all this stuff. That's how the hierarchy is based.
Okay, so the hierarchy's there. So why are you playing around on?
Because that's not the point. The point isn't what I do specifically necessarily, or what you do specifically, because we're both in unique situations. I think I'm saying generally.
What do you mean?
As far as
you don't think there's other dudes out there that go out for dinner with their wives sometimes? That makes us unique.
Oh, that part isn't unique.
Okay, what's unique?
The part that you got your one restaurant and your wife is that certain like way. I think the typical person, there's more to it than that. That's what I think.
I know that I'm not normal, right?
I know that too. Sir.
I know. So I know that it's not normal to just be like, oh, I want to go to the same 3 restaurants over and over again and get the same exact food, by the way.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
They're so rare that I can't even remember the last time I thought to myself, oh, it'd be great to go out and try something new.
Okay. So
there's probably some psychologist doing an assessment right now as I'm talking and figuring out like, oh, he's got fear of whatever. And I don't think so. I think when I'm going to go out and I'm going to invest, like I already don't want to get in a car. I don't want to drive somewhere. I don't want to go wait. I don't want to put on shoes or whatever. Yeah, I'd rather just be barefoot, right? So why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because whatever. It's a good night. My wife doesn't feel like whatever. Whatever. She doesn't feel like whatever.
Okay.
So we're going to go out somewhere. So I'm going to go somewhere that I know.
Yeah. That's cool.
I'm going to get something that I already know.
Bro, good for you, for real. It's unusable for the typical person is what I'm saying.
Hey, let me ask you this, because I don't eat sushi. How much variance is there
in what,
in sushi
quality?
restaurants? Yeah, quality,
Yeah.
quantity.
Yeah, big variance.
So, bro, how can you say that you're not, like, you got your top 3?
Because the variance I don't care that much about.
Okay, how often are you like, oh, cool, there's another one over here. Let's go order from that one we've never been to before.
Not for the purpose of that it's new. So I agree with you in that scenario. But
So
this is what I am saying, though, where let's say, okay, have you ever heard of a concept, the idea, I know you have, by the way, of someone saying, hey, let's try something new. Hey, we always go
that's
there.
My
let's
wife.
go somewhere.
That's my wife all day.
That's a lot of people's wives. And that's my point. So sometimes they want to try something new, but they don't want. But sometimes they don't want that beef of that decision. They want you to make the decision.
Oh yeah.
See what I'm
and
saying?
so sometimes just for the sake of it, just to get some leadership capital going.
Yes.
Hey, let's try something new. We went to a joint the other day that was new. And you know what? It was my wife was all excited.
Yep.
Like we got in a car.
Yeah.
We drove somewhere.
Okay.
And she was EAE, man. EAE.
What is EAE again?
Everybody's all excited. So she was EAE on this, right? And I'm like, okay. So we went up there and we got in there and it was like, it was fine. And now we're driving back after finding parking, after driving up there, finding parking, getting sat down, figuring out the menu, and you were driving. Now we drive home, and I'm like, do you ever want to go back there? She's like, no.
Yeah.
So think about that, bro.
But that doesn't mean that it's a bad way to think.
Great adventure, right?
Well, okay.
So basically, you're hitting me. What you're hitting me with is I need to open my mind.
No.
No. That's true. You should use that as a flank. You can flank me right now. Tell me, Jocko, you know what? You just need to open your mind. You need to pry your brain open and get some more different food.
Okay. Well, at this point in my life, I'm very uncomfortable telling you what you should do, Jocko.
I need help.
However,
apparently.
I'm actually with you with the same restaurant, same exact thing, bro. The sushi restaurant that I call, pretty much every time I get sushi, unless it's the days that they're not open, literally, and this is literally, I'll call. They know my phone number on the caller ID. It doesn't even say Echo. It just says my number. Yeah. Oh, hi Echo. I say I want this, I want this, and they're like, yeah, like they know, like, oh, no cucumber on this. They know the thing. In fact, there was a new girl there. She's not new anymore. Shout out to Jocelyn, by the way. And she would be like, she took my order, got it wrong. The sushi chef got it right on his own. That's how insane.
You feel like you made it in the world because of that right there. You said that with a lot of pride, bro. You're like, a lot of pride.
That is not the point. The point is, I'm with you on the whole. I go the same spot and get the exact same thing every single time, 100%. My question was, which you answered, by the way, with your anecdote, is sometimes. Sure, as a as a silent leader, you want to go with the other person's plan. But sometimes they don't want that beef of even coming up with a plan. So you got to have a plan.
Come up with a plan, no factor.
And it better not be the same exact plan sometimes.
But here's the thing. My wife knows that if she asks me for a plan, she knows where we're going. We're just going to, we're going to Raglan. What up?
But
hey, here's the other thing. We already talked about this. I have to calculate the emotions in the situation.
Yes, sir.
So if my wife's like, oh, it's been a long week. I really just want to do something nice tonight. You know what that means? Yep. That means she wants to go to somewhere maybe we haven't been for. Big risk for me.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? I got to calculate my emotions, which can be controlled. Her emotions, which I can't control. But also, I'm going to look at it and say, oh, my wife is probably going to be excited if we go to a new venue that we haven't been to before. So it's going to be a positive emotion for her. I put that in the calculus. I also have to put in the calculus, hey, my week was good. I'm not that busy, whatever. Okay, cool. I got some time tonight. I'm not going to be mad. So cool. Oh yeah, it's a good night to roll down there. And also if the calculus is my wife's going to be super happy and I'm going to be super angry, that's no factor because I can just be like, cool. I'm just going to force myself to have a good time and no factor. So I'm not going to let it dictate, but I have to calculate the emotions on both sides. My emotions in the calculus barely count. I'm going to say that again. My emotions in the calculus barely count. And I don't hold a grudge. I don't mope around that night. I don't go to the restaurant and say, see, I told you. No. My emotions barely count. What counts is my wife's emotions, or my employees' emotions, or my boss's emotions. I have control over my emotions. Therefore, they have very little say in the calculus.
I think I get it now. For real.
Okay.
Like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Because it's pretty, if I got this correctly, I'm going to talk it out and make sure I got it. That was pretty genius, I think, what you just kind of demonstrated. Okay, so in my scenario, hypothetical, by the way, where let's say my wife wants to go somewhere new, but she doesn't want to think about where to go. She doesn't want to make the decision. She doesn't want to figure it out. She wants me to go, even though I might not even want to go somewhere new. Or maybe I do, but I for sure. Now, don't they just go one level deeper? That's two conflicting plans right there, isn't it? Because her plan is do something new without having to make the decision. That's the plan, right? So it's like, hey, let's go with that plan. As opposed to my plan would be like, no, we'll go to the same spot. Or no, I don't want to go. That would be my plan. Okay. Right? So essentially, you just went one level deeper where the decision to make the decision is part of the plan. Yeah, it's her plan. Decision. Yeah, yes. Exactly right. So you go with her plan.
By making a decision on a new place, I'm executing her plan.
Her plan. Yes.
So it's a win-win. That's what we're doing over here. I
got it, bro.
Yeah. See? You see how nice that works?
That's why I come to you for these things, man.
That stuff all works out in the end, bro.
Yes, sir.
That's the way it all is. It's all a unified theory. It's a unified, do you know what a unified theory is?
Yeah.
It's like the theory of everything.
Yeah.
All the stuff that I'm talking about, it's a unified theory. And if you pull the thread on it, you'll be like, oh, so you are executing her plan. And her plan was to have you come up with the plan.
Okay, so let me just...
a new restaurant.
This is just me echo telling you, Jocko, this. Remember how I said like the number one most valuable thing, not the only one, the number one most valuable thing that I learned from you is essentially the long game versus the short game and how that's in play. Okay, so the updated version of that, which happened a while ago as well, which is it might be just more of the same really, but basically it goes like this, a more unified expression, we'll say. In life, in everything you do, whatever, pretty much, there's going to be a short game being played and a long game being played. Mm-hmm. Most people, the default is the short game, for sure. Yep. But there's going to be a short game, there's going to be a long game. There's also, with everyday interactions, with everything you do, there's going to be a small picture, and then there's going to be a big picture. And I think that bigger picture, like that was an example of like, just look at it one level bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, we're not going with her plan to what restaurant it is. The decision for the restaurant is part of her plan. How you plan.
Yeah. And just kind of FYI, saying the big picture and saying long term and saying strategy versus tactics, all those are interchangeable. Yeah. Not completely interchangeable, but essentially interchangeable. They're different ways of saying the same thing. I mean, when I would talk to one of my guys, I might not say, hey, think about this from a strategic perspective. I might say, hey, you got to think about the big picture. And I'm not saying a bigger map, right? I'm saying over the longer term. Yeah. So you're right that it's a different way of expressing the same thing. And maybe we could find some nuance. Maybe we will find some nuances on the big picture versus the long term versus the strategy. Mm-hmm. But essentially, they're all meaning the same thing, and they're all a good place to focus. And, with that, these are things that we're talking about to apply to really everything that you do in your life, from picking restaurants to picking employees to picking plans to figuring out where you're going to go in 6 months and a year and 2 years to figuring out what you're doing with your own personal health, to figuring out everything. And in order to do that, you have to detach. That is the first step that you got to take. Don't get emotional. Listen to what people have to say. Keep your damn ego in check. It's there. The hardest thing about the ego is you don't know it. It's like the air that you breathe. It's there and you don't recognize it until you go, oh, hold on a second. If you start to inhale something that stinks, then you notice it. Other than that, you don't really notice it. That's what's going on with your ego. So you got to be careful of it. And then keep that mind opened, because that's where you get the new ideas, and that's where you figure things out. And if you do that when you detach, then your ability to see will increase exponentially. it's like if you had bad vision and one day you put on glasses and you could see, like that is, or one day you're walking around and you put some dirty, chipped up sunglasses on that were old and crappy. Mm-hmm. And do you have sunglasses like that?
Yeah.
I got some sunglasses like that. And you're just wearing them because it's sunny out or whatever, but there's nothing really that you're just cruising. But then all of a sudden something happens where you need to see.
Yeah.
And you lift up those glasses and everything becomes real clear.
Sure.
That's like what detachment does. It's a superpower, and it gives you an amazing advantage in everything that you do. So detach, everybody. That's what we got for you. Echo. It's a good way for us to get our minds right. What else we need to think about here?
Our bodies.
Oh, check.
I broke my foot. I don't know if it's broken, but it seems broken.
You're wearing a funny shoe.
Yes, called a post-op shoe.
But you didn't get op.
No op, just the shoe.
Okay.
I think it was like a turf toe gone wild, morphed into more injuries because I've been doing a barefoot kind of scenario.
Yeah.
You know, when you work out like squatting, do some barefoot and stuff. Yeah. I hear good things.
Yeah.
And it was working out for me.
Yeah. Until
until I was doing burpees on the cement, going hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you drop down, and burpees, you can do them different ways. Yeah. But I do the kind where like they're almost like sprawls, but I don't sprawl on my hip or nothing. I just sprawl. It's just on my hands and feet. That's it. Nothing else touches. So it's like there's some pressure.
Yeah, the pressure.
Barefoot, cement, boom. It hurts, no problem.
Was it one impact? You're like, ouch.
No.
So it was the whole
next day I was like,
cumulative work.
Yeah. So the next day I was jammed up, but I could still do barefoot squats. And then the next, actually it wasn't right the next day. It was like maybe a day or two later. And bro, the next day after that, couldn't walk. And my foot ballooned up. And it wouldn't go away, bro. Anyway, I'm jammed up a little bit. But it does focus your brain on alternative stuff,
So what you've been focused on?
The nutrition element.
The nutrition.
It's a big deal. It helps with healing way more. Night and day, by the way. And sleep. But yeah, boom. That's what's going on with me. Because I know you're wondering about that. Anyway, so there is such thing as exploring just nutrition, but supplementation can be just as important.
What's that percentage that people throw out, like on nutrition versus exercise? Like you can't outwork a bad diet.
Yes. I believe that's a good
except philosophy. For when you're 18 or 19 or 20 years old and you're going through buds. You can outwork a horrible diet.
You can't
literally eat everything.
Freaking buds scenario.
You can't out eat a bud scenario. Yeah. It's not happening. You just need to get your grub on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what you need to do. So if you want to help yourself out, get some milk. Get some, which is a protein dessert, really.
Yeah.
If all things being considered.
In my case, it was additional joint warfare, additional super krill oil. That was my protocol. Milk, I have been going heavy on the milk. It jammed me up only with cardio stuff.
What? Oh, the foot injury.
Yeah. So I'm still going hard on the milk is the point there.
Did you see the little video I posted of the new factory down in North Carolina?
Yeah.
What was your thoughts?
What, on the video or the new factory?
The new factory. Well, I know that the video was,
freaking amazing. Yeah, that's your assessment of your video. Yeah.
No, I know. No, I don't want you to sit here and be like, well, your angle on this shot over here. I could have added some CGI.
Yep. Well,
so I don't want your professional assessment of the video there, freaking.
So I watch
EC.
So I think there's this guy named Jake Tran. He's a guy who makes these really cool little mini like documentaries almost on YouTube, and he talks about like conspiracies and money and corruption and stuff like that. It's really interesting. Jake Tran, and so I go into rabbit holes every once in a while with his videos. So a lot of times he'll talk about things like foreign corruption, or like that's where I got the actually it might have been from one of his videos, I'm not sure, I forget, but where I got the expression uniquely priced labor.
Oh, okay.
So you get like like, and I get it, man. You want to, buy something kind of cheaper and bring it, and sell it for more.
Right.
And a lot of times part of that discounted price is
slave labor.
The cost of making it. Exactly.
Slave labor, bro.
Exactly right. Do they say that when you're making your order from China or whatever? Do they say, hey, like here's all your list items. Oh, labor, 10 cents a day. Like it doesn't say that kind of stuff. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, let's face it. But yeah, so when I watch your video, and a lot of videos, actually the Origin HD stuff, it kind of like goes to show like, oh, okay. It creates this bigger picture in your mind about what's really going on. Yep. Like that guilt, and I'm not saying everyone feels guilty about slave labor in other countries, but when you think about it, man, it does warrant some guilt as far as feelings go.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, when you see like, how you guys, Origin and in that video and a lot of other videos, it does make me think about that a lot more.
Yeah, and you know what else is an interesting thing to think about is the environment. I was watching something. I was watching Rogan the other day, and I forget who we had on, but they were talking about seeing the rivers, like a river in China, and it's dyed blue. It's like blue from making denim, and they just dump the chemicals right into the river, and you can't live there because it's so awful and polluted. And so that's why we're doing this, man. That's why we're doing this. And it was cool. The thing I liked about showing that factory, and that was my first time getting to that factory, and the thing I liked about showing is I think it's a good opportunity for people to go, people are starting to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, knowing that it's good for the workers, good for America, good for the environment, good for you as a human. So originusa.com. Get yourself some gear there, and you'll be stoked.
Oh, yeah.
So,
also, speaking of gear, Jocko's store. It's called Jocko's store. Some new stuff on there. Discipline equals freedom. Good. We got and don't forget about the shirt locker. Mm-hmm. I talk about this all the time, but it is. There's some cool. If you're on YouTube, this is a newer. Yeah. Well, you know what this is?
That's G.I. Joe, right?
Yes. But yeah, so they're a little bit different kind of designs, but you get one every month.
Yeah.
And if you can see the layers, I think that adds to the experience.
Adds to the hype.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's that? JockoStore.com. Get some of that. Also, we have the Jocko Underground. We have to have that. We have to have the Jocko Underground because look, we don't control whatever platform you're listening to this, unless you're listening to it on Jocko Underground, which you can do. Then we don't control the platform. We don't know if they're going to censor. We don't know if they're going to insert ads and force you to listen to an advertisement so that they can make money.
Involuntarily.
They make money off of us and you. Yeah. And that's not good. You don't need to do that. Don't let them make money off of you. Come on. So yeah, we don't, and we don't know if they're ever going to just pull us off because they don't like us because we said something bad about whoever. Mm-hmm. We said we don't like slave labor. Well, they want to protect slave labor, so they pull us off the platform. So, JockoUnderground.com, $8.18 a month, and you get this. Plus, we do like additional podcast on there talking about things that are, let's say, Jocko podcast adjacent.
Life advice and tips. You know what? Would you consider this? Because this is what I kind of thought. You know, like you'll talk about like a topic, a thought. Mm-hmm. You ever heard of it's like a book called Deep Thoughts. It's more of a comedy book.
It was a joke.
Yeah,
Deep Thoughts is like a thing from Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah, and then there's a book. There's an actual book. And it's that, but it's a bunch of them. And they're pretty like, some of them are like, okay, that's funny. But some of them are like, oh yeah, huh. And you kind of, but these, a lot of times, the beginning of the Underground podcast is Jocko's Deep Thoughts.
That's interesting. I didn't really thought of that. I don't think it is at all. I don't think that's what I think they are is like topics that I come across where I think, that'd be cool to talk about for half an hour, or I learn something that I go, oh, this applies to a lot of different situations. Yeah. It's not really Jocko podcast, but it's a little underground activity. Yeah. So there you go. That's JockoUnderground.com if you want to check that out. We have a YouTube channel. Origin USA has a YouTube channel as well if you want to check out what's happening. And Dakota Meyer, he's got his thing, flipsidecanvas.com if you want to get something cool to hang on your wall. I've written a bunch of books you can buy. You can read them. You can ask questions. You can ask questions about anything on extremeownership.com We have a place to learn leadership and a place to learn about life, really. I'm on there 1, 2, 3 times a week live, like a Zoom call. Well, it's not like a Zoom. It's a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. If you want to ask me a question directly and you want to have a full interaction, like, hey, explain the situation and explain what you've already tried and explain what this one Fred is doing and saying to you, you can work through all that stuff with me. Go to extremeownership.com for that. And also we have a leadership consultancy. Go to echelonfront.com for that. And also, if you want to help service members who are active and retired, you want to help their families, you want to help Gold Star families, Mark Lee's mom, she's got an awesome organization. And if you want to help that, you can go to americasmightywarriors.org. Also, our friend Micah, he has a incredible organization taking vets out into the wilderness to kind of reawaken their soul. heroesandhorses.org. Don't forget, you can find us both on Twitter, on the gram, on Facebook. Echoes at Echo Charles. I'm at Jocko Willink. You got to watch out for that algorithm, though. It's going to try and grab you. You know, another thing, if you want to come and meet up with us, come to the muster. We have an event. The next one's in Denver. So if you want to come to the muster, you want to hang out, you want to meet, you want to go through some leadership training, once again, go to echelonfront.com, check out events, and come to one of those live events. People ask me like, oh, are you speaking live? And those are the events kind of where I speak live. The muster, the battlefield, FTXs, I go to some of those. So check any of that stuff out. And of course, thanks to the military troops around the world, we just went through Memorial Day. And on that day, we remember and memorialize those that made the ultimate sacrifice. And we know that all those who signed the dotted line and swore the oath made a commitment to make that sacrifice. So thanks to all of you out there who made that oath. And also thanks to our police and law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Border Patrol, Secret Service, all first responders. You also sign the dotted line and swear to protect us. And we are grateful for your commitment as well. And everybody else that's listening, you can't see what you're doing if you're actually watching yourself do it. If that's the only thing you're watching is what you're doing, you can't see what you're doing. You can't see where you're going. You can't see the impact that you're going to have. You can only see a few inches in front of yourself, and you can't make good decisions when you can't see anything, and you can't make good decisions when you're wound up and you're emotional. And you can't be a good leader or a good person if you're allowing any of those things to happen. And a lot of times what's driving that is your ego. So don't let your ego get out of control. Take a step back, relax, look around, and then go get after it. And until next time, this is Echo and Jocko.